أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, as we continue our preparations for the hereafter, I wanted to mention a hadith in Bukhari where the Prophet ﷺ said that in paradise there is a gate called Ar-Rayyan, through which those who used to fast will enter on the day of resurrection, and no one but they will enter it. It will be said, "Where are those who fasted?" And they will get up, and none will enter it but them. And when they have entered it, it will be locked, and no one shall enter after them. Perhaps we're familiar with this hadith, and of course we're in the month of Ramadan, so inshallah we've all been fasting. But I want to recall us to the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only accepts that which is good. As we know from the story of the children of Adam, who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked to bring a sacrifice of their crops and of their animals. And the one son brought the very best of his crops and the best of his animals. And the other son fulfilled the letter of the request by bringing an animal, but it was sickly and near death, and bringing the crops that were mostly wilted and not really fit to eat. And Allah accepted only from the son who brought the best. I mention this so that we might reflect a little bit on our fasting and ask, what kind of fasting are we bringing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Allah accepts that which is good. And we have to ask, is our fast good? Is our fasting simply that we went hungry and thirsty? Because we know that it's more than that. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, who doesn't give up quarreling and lying and cursing gets nothing from his fast except hunger and thirst. Sometimes when people are asked, why do you fast? And the response comes, well, it's so that we have a chance to feel what it's like to be poor and hungry. And yet, if that was the reason for our fasting, then Allah would have exempted all of the poor and the hungry from fasting. Because that's their everyday life. They don't need a special month to know how it feels to be hungry and poor. And if our fasting is, as Allah said, for us to achieve taqwa, to achieve God consciousness, then again the question comes back to, what are we getting out of our fasting? We may go the day without food and water, but if it's filled with video games and other distractions, and we try to sleep as much of the day as possible and so forth, our fasting isn't bringing us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then it's more of an annoyance. And then we have to ask, would we be surprised on the Day of Judgment not to get called from the gate of Ar-Rayyan? Because our fasting was nothing more than what the one son gave to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that fulfilled the letter of the law, but not the spirit of the law. And so we should ask, does my fasting include also the fasting of my eyes, from looking at that which I shouldn't look at? And there's far too much, unfortunately, out there that's even popping up in our face that we shouldn't be looking at. But are we at least more conscious, more deliberate in our attempt to lower our gaze? Are we fasting with our tongue, holding back the retorts or the sarcasm or the gossip or the slander or even just that useless talk that gains nothing? Are we fasting with our heart, refraining from desires, reining them in, and trying to reattach ourselves more to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? To remember with the hunger pang that we're fasting for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to make us aware of Allah and then cause us to be reflective on our state. Because, my dear brothers and sisters, this is the kind of fasting we need to bring, inshallah. And I want us to practice this complete fasting in Ramadan because it's easier, because the shayateen are locked up, because we have positive peer pressure, Because inshallah, everybody in our family is doing it, and if we're blessed to be in an Islamic school, everybody in our school is doing it, and if we're blessed to work with other Muslims, our co-workers are doing it. So this month it's easy to fast. But we want to be called from the gate of Ar-Rayyan, not just because we fasted in Ramadan, because we want to be a people who fasted completely in Ramadan. And inshallah, we can be a people who fast outside of Ramadan. If we can do Mondays and Thursdays, that's awesome. If it's a bit much, then maybe we could do the 3 middle days, the 3 white days as they're called. During the 14th, 15th, and 16th of the lunar calendar. But let us engage in the extra fasting. If not that, at least the 6 days of Shawwal and the day of Arafah and the other days that are highly recommended. Let us make an intention, insha'Allah, that on the day of judgment, that each of us will be one of the people that are being told, stand up and come enter the gate of Ar-Rayyan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.